Hello everybody, I am Chip Walton and welcome to Chop and Brew, a very special episode of Chop and Brew, a road trip episode, in which we go to New York City for the New York City Homebrew Tour. Now as homebrewers, there's no greater joy than sharing our creation with brewers and non-brewers alike, getting feedback, watching their eyes light up when they realize that yes, homebrew can be this good. And then obviously we all enjoy geeking out on equipment, ingredients, and processes, and that's what the New York City Homebrew Tour is all about. Last fall, my buddy Abstract Artimus and I had a unique opportunity to visit with beer journalist Joshua M. Bernstein on a perfectly beautiful day in Brooklyn as he led one of his popular NYC Homebrew Tours. We, along with 30 or so other homebrew tourists, enjoyed a collection of great beer from 3 awesome homebrewers and toured their very different home breweries. In this episode, we're going to get to know Joshua and the homebrewers Jason, Isaac, and Simon. We're going to talk about their beers, we're going to enjoy their beers, we're going to check out their setups, and we're going to look at what it's like brewing in New York City. So grab a pint and your walking shoes, because we're off on the NYC Homebrew Tour.
My name is Joshua M. Bernstein. I'm a Brooklyn-based beer journalist, author, and tour guide. And today we're going to go on a homebrew tour. And a homebrew tour is this really very special, idiosyncratic thing. The idea is basically that homebrewers are the next wave, the next generation of professional brewers. And so what we're going to do today is go into homebrewers' homes, meet them, try their beer, and go on to the next stop. So usually we go to 3 different stops during the homebrew tour. And then with about between 25 and 35 people sign up via my website and a ticket link. And then they get the directions about the first stop they're going to, but they have no idea who they're going to be meeting. They know very little about the brewers. They give them basic outline beers they're going to be trying, but they don't really know who they're going to see, what they're going to experience. So it's kind of putting your total faith and trust into a random stranger that they just found out about via some totally esoteric way, via word of mouth or via friends. I don't really advertise a lot about the homebrew tour because there are so few spots, because New York City apartments in general are so small, they're so tiny that even just having 25 to 35 people in there can really overwhelm a space. And so, but basically the idea is we're gonna go in, try their beer, go on to the next stop, and go on to the next stop. So 3 stops in total, about 4 hours over the course of the day, and usually between 8 and 12 different beers people get to try. For me, what I love about the homebrew tour is that New York City is a really big, massive place, and it can be really scary to find people with like-minded interests. And you could be sitting next to someone in a bar and you would maybe talk to them, maybe not. With the homebrew tour, it really breaks down barriers and allows people to start communicating and talking. And I mean, all walks of life goes on there. Everything from Goldman Sachs bankers on down to, lesbian couples just getting into homebrewing. And so it's just this great mix. It's what New York City is all about. New York City is nothing but a stew of people. And for this reason, everyone's all together. They're enjoying themselves. And really, they're coming back to the thing they're passionate about, which is beer. And beer, in many of the ways, beer is really what brings people together. That beer, you can have a conversation about the beer, how it got there. What I really think beer does is beer really helps people talk. It helps people, just communicate. So the first stop on the tour is usually people are really kind of just rolling into it. And they're like, what are we doing? It's 1 p.m. on a Sunday. Some people are hungover. Some people just are, some people are rolling late. But then we go up there, we get to try the beer. And then by the second stop, people are kind of feeling a lot better. And by the third stop, people are having conversation and really having a great time. And usually at the third stop, I try to find a place that's got a bigger backyard or a larger space so we can hang out, spread out, people can have a conversation, and so we can let people kind of naturally disperse instead of me putting the iron clamp down, being like, we have to go right now. When you live in New York City, you tend to get stuck in cycles and neighborhoods and routine. And what the Homebrew Tour does, I think, it forces people that to go to different neighborhoods, to explore restaurants, to do things they wouldn't do. On a typical Saturday or Sunday, you may not want to veer very far, but in this case, it really gives you a reason. It gives you impetus. It gets you out the door and gets you into some other place. Nowadays, I've met enough homebrewers, and the homebrewing community in Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, Staten Island is really flourishing. And so, by meeting enough people, you can really set these tours up together and really find a route that makes sense. So today, we're going to go through Carroll Gardens and Gowanus, which are two neighborhoods in Brooklyn. And I'm not going to have to walk more than, probably 20, 25 minutes tops between stops. I know the brewers. I know they all make great beer, but I don't really know exactly how the day is going to roll out. And that's really the beauty of it. And we have a lot of people that come on the tour. I'd say on every tour, there's between 50 and 75% repeat people that come on because no two tours are the same. You may revisit a home, but every tour, I try to have at least one stop that's brand new that no one has ever been to before. And in this case, the tour we're going on today, Jason Saller, the first stop, has hosted before, but the other two people have never hosted a stop on the Homebrew Tour, so even they don't really know what to expect. And they're putting a lot of faith into me, a kind of random stranger, to just open up their house, and the fact that we won't be sitting there and, drinking. But I try to infuse that it's not about getting drunk, it's about respect, it's about education, and having a fun day. Everyone ready to go in? All right, I'm going to call Jason. So the first stop is Jason Saller. So he's in the process of opening up his own brewery called Strong Rope. Still kind of in the planning stages, hopefully opening up in Brooklyn in the next, in the next year or two. Go up there, he's making, I think, a few fresh hop beers, some other really good stuff, and so, friendly guy up there. And so, you guys ready to go in? Yay!
So my setup right now is currently a 5-gallon all grain setup. I have a 10-gallon Blickman pot, and do as long as the weather's nice, and sometimes even when it's not. I do my brewing out here. I'll do the boil and the mash out here, and then I'll bring it in and hook it up to the inside to cool it down with an immersion chiller. So I do 5 gallons, probably about like once a week or once every 2 weeks. Usually every 2 weeks I start to get a little anxious that I haven't brewed in a while. It's tough in the city, to kind of get into brewing. People think that you really can't jump into it because of the space constraints, but it's really not that bad. You have to just kind of, if you have really small space, just start doing 1 gallon all grain batches. I mean, you can do small scale. You can even do extract if you don't want to have to worry about the all grain. And you can do a lot of stuff in small space. You just have to be kind of creative with how you're doing and what you're doing it. I mean, you just use your stools a lot. use whatever you have available. Countertop is great. Right now, in my hand right now is my brown ale, JJ Bollerack's brown ale. It's a kind of a classic. It's a slight my take on a classic American brown ale. It's got a nice hop bitterness of Centennial hops, and it's about 7 different types of malts with dark crystal, Cara Munich, just in a pale organic base malt. All of the malts and all of the hops that I use are locally grown, whether it's from Valley Malts that does the New York State grown barley, then malted in Massachusetts, or it's the hops from Long Island or even upstate in Western New York. And then the other beer I have, which we have a shot of right here. Look at that. That is my wet hop white IPA. It's 100%. It's like 99% wheat with a little bit of rye. All of it is from Valley Malt. And then the hops are from Farm to Pint, which I picked about a month ago. We went out to the farm on Long Island and we picked, it's a Chinook for bittering, about a pound of Chinook for bittering, and then about 2 pounds of aroma of Northern Brewer. It's the first time I've actually really done wet hops, so it's kind of a new thing to try to do all that with the, I'm just throwing 3 pounds of hops into the boil kettle. So it was a little crazy, but it was fun. It was a good beer, and just you really get that kind of like wheat flavor. It's kind of like a cracked wheat with a nice, spiciness and bitterness that comes through. You get a bit of a like grapefruity character in it. I'm actually in the process of working to start a brewery here in Brooklyn, just a small scale, kind of nano brewery, but really focusing on doing beer that is sold at retail through the tap room. When Strong Rope does, and Strong Rope Brewery is the name of the brewery, when that does, finally take shape, it's really going to be about doing small scale batches and doing a variety of beers with fresh local ingredients, and really talking to people about what I'm doing and what I'm trying to do, and sharing a beer with them. I mean, it's all about the beer.
I think homebrewers get out of it the ability to have like-minded people and to have community and learn other people that may be in their neighborhood. I mean, that's what it is. It's all about the exchange of information, ask questions. You'll see on the tour, not everyone's a homebrewer and not everyone wants to homebrew, but they all enjoy beer. And so the people that are homebrewers, a lot of times they talk about the recipes, have questions for the brewers, like how do you do this? How do you get your equipment in here? Where do you condition? Where do you actually ferment? And so that for them, I think for homebrewers, it makes them think about their apartments and their setups in a much more practical way about how to maximize your space and really how to get the most out of your New York City apartment. Because I've done homebrew tours in studio apartments to 4,000 square foot lofts. And so in each place, I mean, there's no saying one step is better than the other. It's just all about the end product. They're still having a bottle of beer in the hand or a kegerator filled with beer. It's just how they go on that journey. And I think for New Yorkers, space is really the battle. And I mean, even for everyone, if you have extra space, you don't really know what to do with it. And so if you have too little space, you don't know what to do with it. And so I think for both groups to really figure out for homebrewers really how to go about doing it, maximizing their space. And I think maybe encouraging them that's possible, even with people with maybe wives, babies, things that may detract from their ability to go out and, think about that.
Yeah, homebrewing to me is great. I mean, it's something I love to do. It's something I love to experiment with. It's a way for me to, one, play around. It's an art form that I like to participate in. It's great when I'm by myself. I can do this. I can get completely into it and completely, just lost in the process of homebrewing. But then it's amazing that once that process is complete, that I have 30 people come into my apartment wanting to taste my beer and talk homebrew. So it's such a communal spirit to it, and just a way for people to get together and just share and talk craft and whatever they do. I mean, even if it's not homebrewing, we can talk about whatever you're making, and it's such a fun thing.
So we're getting ready to wrap up. About 5-10 minutes, get out of here. If you use the bathroom, over there. If you need one last taste of anything, it's over there where Jason's standing. Let's give Jason a big round of applause. If you guys...
So my name is Isaac Deutsch. I've been a home brewer on and off for a little over 20 years. More seriously the last 5 years doing all grain batches. We're in Carroll Gardens, which is a historic neighborhood in Brooklyn. We're in my backyard right now. It's a brownstone neighborhood. And today we're tasting 4 different beers. We started off with an Rauchtoberfest, which is done with smoked malt, about 45% smoked malt, so it's kind of a Rauch, light Rauch Oktoberfest. Sort of nice balance to the maltiness of the base beer. We moved on to a pale ale, which is kind of a session pale, about 5%. It was dry hopped with Centennial and Cascade. And then the third beer of the day was an old ale, which is kind of more of a winter warmer type of beer, sort of in the mid 6% range, more focused on the malt side. With kind of sort of rich, raisiny, kind of dried fruit type of flavor. And then the last beer of the day is going to be a coffee stout, which I'm making for a party, which is a Brazilian Mexican party. So it has key ingredient from Brazil, which is Brazilian coffee, and it's got Mexican piloncillo sugar, which is sort of a dark sugar that adds a rich flavor to it and increases the alcohol. I generally do infusion mashes with a picnic cooler type of setup. I also occasionally do step mashes. I haven't tackled decoction yet. And I'm starting to move more towards lagers as well to try to expand the types of beers I'm doing. Well, I started home brewing when I was kind of in college in Maine, in my summers in Maine. And at that point, I started with extract and partial mash. It wasn't that easy to get your hands on ingredients, so I think partially you had a lot more, you had to do it yourself a little bit more. So we were, at times kind of roasting the grains ourselves to try to change. You didn't have such a variety of grains. You were getting a lot of your ingredients more from like health food stores than actually from there were no dedicated homebrew stores at that point. So, you had to sometimes tweak your own equipment. So it was a little bit more like a do-it-yourself type of environment. When I got heavily back into it, in the last 5 or 6 years, you have a lot more option, as far as different varieties of hops and malt. You have stores that kind of have every gadget you potentially could want, and a lot you don't even really need. So it's really kind of, I think that the whole hobby has become much more let's say sophisticated, and probably the quality of the beer frankly has gotten better because of that. People were probably not really dry hopping. People didn't really know what dry hopping was. There are a lot of techniques. Oak chips, sour beers, and sort of using bacteria, different types of bacteria in the beer was not. So it's become much more varied, and that's kind of exciting as a home brewer because you're not just making, a pale ale, a stout, and a brown ale. You have a lot more options.
What was the impetus of opening your home to a bunch of strangers?
Well, it's always great to drink beer with other people, and I think drinking beer with people you don't know is probably one of the best ways to get to know people, and I like a chance to get some critiques on my beer and get some feedback. It's always a good opportunity. I think it's great to, you don't have a natural way to sort of open your house. I think from both sides, whether you're the brewer who's opening your house, you're always serving your beers to your friends, but you not generally have a group of strangers who are really interested in craft beer coming to your house. And from the other side, I think you also don't have an easy way to sort of find out what people are doing in the city aside from your direct relationships, your direct friends. So it's kind of a way to bring those two groups together in an environment you wouldn't normally have. All right, on to the next one. Get the hell out, man.
Over here on the Guana, seeing thing the Guana Center things. You come to New York City, you get to see everything. But I'll take you over to the Guana Center thing.
Yeah. I started homebrewing in 2008, and I just kind of started off with making some terrible beer and bottling it, infecting my beer, and underpitching we used, and whatever, using bleach. I used a lot of bleach. But then there's a lot of stuff to read. There's a lot of books, online forums, and it's pretty easy to kind of learn how to make better beer. And then I started entering contests, which is awesome because you get actual feedback. I started kind of entering BJCP contests where you get formulaic feedback. I did the BJCP classes where I studied beer styles and off flavors, where they come from, appropriate profiles for different styles of beer, which is also an awesome way to taste the commercial examples, see what beer is supposed to taste like, where the flavors come from, how they all come together when you brew it yourself. And then I've had some real luck with competitions. I've won a bunch of these ribbons. I'll show you my ribbons near the door. The little, they're almost like country fair, little red or orange ribbons. I love them. But the two best ones, I won the New Jersey State Fair. I got a first place for a Russian Imperial Stout, and it's like this little tiny gold thing, you know, with like, it's not the big ornate ribbon, and I'm really disappointed. And then more recently, the Brooklyn Wort, which Joshua was involved with, was a lot of fun. I've done it 4 times, counting this most recent time. I won second place 2 or 3 years ago, which was great. But then this time around, 2 weeks ago, I won first place. And it's an amazing accomplishment, I think, because the beers there are just incredible. And they're not in that BJCP category. They're not formulaically brewed to certain styles, at least for the most part they're not. They're creative. They end up being unique uses of ingredients, and I think it used to be that the beers were kind of wacky. They always had the like homebrew taste. But the past couple of years, they're just very good beers. Like 90% of them are awesome beers that you really can't find anywhere, as far as I know. Started off with my hoppy wheat beer. It's maybe a 6% wheat beer with a little bit of rye malt just to give it some interesting flavor. Tons of hops in the flame out, tons of hops in the dry hop. A lot of Citra and Cascade, Citra and Galaxy. And you know, it's just a super hop bomb in the aroma category, but not that bitter. It's an easy drinking beer. It's a beer that a lot of people who don't love big, imposing IPAs, but like hops, go for it. Second beer was a red IPA, much more bitter, bigger malt profile, bigger kind of roasty kind of character. I like it personally, but I think it can be a bit much for the seasoned drinker with a palate that's been destroyed by ridiculous numbers of IBUs. But if you're in that category, the red IPA is a great beer. And then finally, I opened some Belgian quads that I had brewed with a buddy 2 years ago. It was a West Laverne 12 clone. I don't want to be cocky, but I feel like if people were homebrewers and they came on a tour like this and they really picked my brain and looked at my process and looked at my equipment and asked me how I did it, I feel like you could save yourself a bunch of years of trial and error. Especially if you have a similar space, small apartment. You could definitely figure out a way to make it work, a way to do it that's not too expensive, not buying a ton of stuff. Because a lot of the information that I came across was like if you have a garage, if you have a ton of space, a big backyard, driveway, and that's not a reality in New York as far as I know. So I think you could get a lot of kind of tips on how to set up your system and how to ferment and temperature control in a pretty small space. And I think that's what it's all about, temperature control. We all know that it's all about temperature control. Yeah. Non-brewers, hopefully you taste some good beer. You see about that alluring world of homebrew, that sexy hot world of the homebrewer. It's not all bacon porters. There's definitely some interesting stuff, and it's a lot of work. The one thing I think would be interesting for non-homebrewers to see is how much cleaning is involved, because I feel like they would enjoy my beer better if they knew how much hours I spent cleaning kettles and fermenters and tubing and whatever. It's a labor of love.
You'd almost rather have people come along for a brew day than just here's how great it tastes.
If they help clean up, definitely. That'd be awesome. It'd be awesome. It's kind of an interesting juncture of, art and science. I'm horrible at science, great at art. And I love the kind of creative aspects, and I love the beer. I love the flavors. I've done the whole BJCP, training, which I think is just valuable in that it teaches you how beer is supposed to taste, where all flavors come from. Learning that, acquiring that knowledge, and being able to make it happen, or keep it from happening, is just been an awesome experience. And I have a better appreciation for beer. The fact that I can make pretty decent beer, I think is great. I'm hugely happy with that accomplishment. And it's cheap. I don't have to pay for some 4-month-old IPAs,
Just like that, our NYC Homebrew Tour experience was over, and it was absolutely amazing. I want to give huge thanks from St. Paul, Minnesota to Joshua, Jason, Isaac, and Simon for throwing in on co-hosting an amazing day. Each of the 3 homebrewers were nice enough to share with us one of the recipes from that day. So go to chopandbrew.com/recipes and you will see those 3 recipes. I'm also going to hyperlink under the episode to a blog post that Simon did after winning a medal at the NHC last year for a rye double IPA. Pretty cool blog post, pretty cool recipe. So 4 recipes out of this episode. Huge thanks again to Joshua M. Bernstein. Check out joshuambernstein.com if you live in New York, or if you are visiting New York and think that you have the opportunity to hop on a homebrew tour, check out his website. You can also learn more about his Brewed Awakening and Complete Beer Course books there. If you know anybody that does something like this, if you live in a city that has some kind of homebrew tour or progressive homebrew festival throughout town, definitely leave a comment about that on YouTube, Facebook, chopandbrew.com, Vimeo, etc., etc. I would love to hear more about people that are kind of conglomerating little homebrew tastings like this. It's really epic. Good stuff. I also want to give a huge shout out to Brooklyn Homebrew shop in Brooklyn, NYC. They let us in a little bit early on that Sunday to interview Joshua in their shop, and they were so nice. A dude named Alex mic'd up and kind of told me about Brooklyn Homebrew and homebrewing in small spaces and what Brooklyn Homebrew is all about. So check that video out. It's a lanyap video. We're calling it Shop Talk Brooklyn Homebrew, and as often as I can when we do these road trips, I'm going to stop by shops, give them a chance to kind of explain the who, what, when, where about their shops, and we'll call those Shop Talk. So give you a chop for chop and a brew for brew NYC Homebrew Tour. Thank you so much for having us along. It was awesome. Cheers.
Hey, welcome to Chop and Brew. I'm Abstract Artimus. We're on this tour and we're about to get drunk. Welcome to my neighborhood, neighbor.
There are a lot of people. I'm sure this is probably not a fire crowd, but you know, whatever. We all have beer, right? So,
You're in the jungle, baby!
literally, yeah.
Never knew you, but now I do.
Let me get a chop for chop brew, Fritz.
Ow! Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Chop, chop, brew for brew.
Love you, man. You're cool as I Dawson, Brian Adams, rocker.
Adams, he said he was gonna hit me in the face.
Drinking by myself again.